of whether we are Christian or not. I reject that because it is somebody else's name. Let them have it. Now I've had plenty of friends. I've prayed in Baptist churches and they knew that I was Latter-day Saint.
Mm-hmm.
And they all embraced me as one of their own
Mm-hmm.
Christian. And I tried to explain to them wholeheartedly with reverence that hey, the Christian name is something that is, that I would rather. My father has called me a Latter-day Saint,
Yeah.
and that's the name I accept.
No, that's in terms. I mean, I agree 100%. God is not petty. He's the opposite of petty. And that's another one of those things that in our debates that you've seen in these different groups, I see kind of the theology of the traditional God to be kind of petty, especially on the more Calvinist side. It's like
Yeah.
really, like you're telling me I could live my whole life as a Latter-day Saint, and do everything sincerely to the best I can to worship Jesus Christ, but be cast into hell because I had this one misunderstanding about a theological difference.
I tease my son, whose name is Jonah, that how God put Jonah in the well and he spit him out on the shores of Nineveh. God is going to come down and with his little spaceship and grab him up and put him in Harlem or something like that. And say, you spent 2 years there to do the work that I asked you to do.
Hey, doing, Mormon?
Mormon? Your church
Going to hell, Mormon?
Mormon?
Hey, Mormon.
Bible tells me you're going to hell, Mormon.
Get out of my face, you Mormon.
I have been called a Mormon. I have been called a Christian. I am not a Mormon. I am not a Christian. I am a child of God, and my master is Jesus Christ. I am a Latter-day Saint on fire.
I'm glad you came on, Steve. Like I said, I wanted to our discussion is going to be based on a comment I made on the on Facebook where I've met many of good Latter-day Saint members who are eager to engage in conversations with those who are outside of the church. And my question or my comment was in the context of, is the Latter-day Saints the only ones that can claim the name Christian? And Steve says, I'm going to engage in this conversation. I want to hear what he has to say.
Yeah.
Is that right, Steve?
That's right. That's right.
I'd like to transition into our subject at this time.
Sure.
And that was, is the people of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, are they the only people that can truly call themselves Christian? Or is that something that you would disagree with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'd say I disagree with that. And, offhand, we might have different ways that we're defining what Christian is. And maybe that's all this conversation ends up coming down to. But yeah, I would say, for me, a Christian is anyone who believes in Christ, however they conceptualize that. And this is where we'll probably end up disagreeing. Because for me, even a Trinitarian who, in my opinion, has a very false view of who Jesus is and whatnot, they believe it and they do their best to follow him. And so in my view, they're Christian in intent, even if they're incorrect in their
you
view.
Said Christian with intent, is that right?
In intent, yes.
Okay, so let me now here's where you give me a chance to go ahead and talk for a little bit. Okay.
Yep, have at it.
All right, so my background, I had to put one of my children in foster care, and I had to go through a reunification court for 3 years. And I actually was representing myself. I had to fire my lawyers, all right? And I did quite well. But one of the things also in my area of expertise is being a journeyman electrician, which I've had to take tests to qualify that. And one of the terms that's used in the National Electrical Code Book is authority having jurisdiction.
Mhm.
And knowing the legal system and knowing that there are laws that are also what we call man's laws, but also God has laws. I look at it this way: if when you were married, did your wife take your name, your last name?
Yeah.
And what was that process? Did she have to sign a document
Oh,
stating
yeah.
that she was married?
Yeah. Multiple documents.
Yes. So she had to make, so those who had jurisdiction over that change created or empowered to do so
Mhm.
by the state of Utah, state of California, and by the people that have chosen those leaders in those states. So they have jurisdiction, they have authority having jurisdiction. Now, in order for us to claim the right to have the name Jesus Christ or the name Christ upon us, it must be under the jurisdiction, under the authority having jurisdiction to be allowed or to have that name applied to us.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I can see what you're saying. There has to be yeah, you can say authority with jurisdiction, that is something formal that the church alone has, formal authority. Yeah, I mean, I'd say if that's the baseline, yeah, if we're talking like legal Christian, I guess, if we were to, use that type of approach, it's I can see what you're saying, a lot of people could say it, but not, we're the only church that could claim to have the actual, signed documentation from the right elected officials or whatnot, kind of thing. Yeah.
So but I would now don't forget that. I mean, I'm a Latter-day Saint on fire, and I've been called Mormon. I've been called a Christian. I don't reject both those names. So I'm still, so it's kind of an oxymoron kind of thing. So how is this guy, AJ, saying that he's the only approved Christian out there with the rest of his band of cultists? But yet he says he rejects those names, and God in his great wisdom said, here's my elect, and they are being known as saints of the latter days, carrying my name, carrying my son's name upon their church, specifically to identify them that they are followers of Jesus Christ. For all the others that proclaim my son's name, I will allow that to happen because their intent is to become Christ-like. It goes back to the idea that that the man comes to Jesus, he says, and says, I cast out demons in your name and all these other things. And Jesus says, I never knew you.
Yeah.
And so but that doesn't mean that he would deny them a path back to our Father in heaven. We know that for sure because we have the work for the dead. I mean, my experience with my dad was just out of this world, so I know that God is not petty. He's absolutely not petty. Considering that this moment in our existence compared to eternity is it's almost like it's like it never happened compared to what eternity looks like. I mean, this is all in my description of it. This life is a waste of time, but it's a necessity of a waste of time compared to what eternity looks like. I mean, everything just, if we were to talk about the fact that the earth, as far as I'm concerned, the earth is, billions of years old. But as far as the human race that God started, it's 7,000 years.
Mhm.
And in that 7,000 year period, eventually this stuff is just going to burn up, and it's going to be like, this was, you mean tell me I worked on a machine for hours and hours on end where I tried to get it to run, and it kicked me all over the place until I kicked it back and it finally started up. And I did all that and I worried about it. And now I just sit back here in the attorneys and I'm like, that was so insignificant.
Yeah, yeah.
But
No,
it was a necessity
uh-huh.
at the time.
Mm. I like that. That's an interesting way of viewing it.
Yeah.
You know,
Go
yeah.
ahead, please.
No, that's you know, in terms, I mean, I agree 100%. God is not petty. He's the opposite of petty. And that's another one of those things that um in our debates that you've seen in these different groups, I see kind of the theology of the traditional God to be kind of petty, you know, especially on the more Calvinist side. It's like, you're like, really,
Yeah.
you know, like you're telling me I could live my whole life as a Latter-day Saint and do everything sincerely to the best I can to worship Jesus Christ, but be cast into hell because I had this one misunderstanding about a theological difference. Like, how petty is that? And I love that the restored gospel shows us God's true nature, which is the opposite of that, and it's so embracing.
Yeah,
And
it is. And like I said, it when it comes to I want to get back to our subject. When it
Sure.
comes to the idea and of whether we are Christian or not, I reject that because it is somebody else's name. Let them have it. Now I've had plenty of friends. I've prayed in Baptist churches and they knew that I was Latter-day Saint.
Mhm.
And they all embraced me as one of their own,
Mhm.
Christian. And I tried to explain to them wholeheartedly with reverence that, hey, the Christian name is something that is, that I would rather, my father's called me a Latter-day Saint, and that's the name I accept. So I've tried to back people down from it in ways, only because I want to be respectful to those who want their own place.
Yeah,
And
that's
let me
fair.
be, and that's okay to let people to have their own place, and let them have their own name. We have our own name, and I don't think it's important for us to try to gain popularity. I hate this idea of
Mhm.
gaining popularity because we got a name change.
Mhm. No, I'm with you there.
And that was kind of the emphasis at one time, is we can identify with you by just changing our name. When we theologically, wish I could speak so clearly, theologically, we have very little connection, especially when it comes to the nature of God.
Mhm.
Even though that I can teach within my own doctrine that we have Trinitarian uh, uh, um, under
Like
we
undertones kind of
actually
thing.
speak on a Trinitarian way, but we're not connected to that. God is nothingness. That's where we
Mhm.
separate
Yeah.
ourselves. God is nothingness. We
Mhm.
completely separate ourselves. We say that God is somebody. That's
Mhm.
that's where we separate.
Yeah.
And so, but we do have the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, which is triune God,
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
Father
Yeah.
being the arbiter of all truth through his
Yeah.
Son.
Yeah, and like terms like triune are all kind of new to me. And I don't know how parsing that, but there is definitely three, in one unified way for sure. That is what the Godhead is. That they're united in their purpose, they're united in their love and in covenant. And yeah, I can understand. I know that there's members of the church who maybe don't think too deeply about the metaphysics of the theology in terms of God's nature, but they know that when they pray, someone hears them, and they know that when they do things that they they have a relationship there, even if they don't understand those key differences, which I mean to you, and I think to you, and definitely to me, the difference of having an embodied God who's tangible and real. I mean, to me, that's like the difference between believing and not believing. You know, if it's this Trinity concept of nothingness versus an actual tangible God, I'm going to go with this one. You know, but to some people, I don't know how important that is, and so you know.
And like I said, God is not petty. For those who believe in that traditional Trinitarian idea, God's not going to say,
Yeah.
"Oh, you totally read this wrong. You're going to hell."
Yeah. 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 No,
You know what I mean? It's like that would be
yeah, that would be so
the
silly.
most
Yeah.
petty God ever. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be like, I mean, I have a lot of ideas. I know that they don't roll with anybody's teaching.
Uh-huh.
I have more debates inside the Church of Jesus Christ than I do outside, actually.
Sure. Yeah, I
I
can understand that.
and I mean, I barely get a teaching spot every once in a while. They never let me teach the kids because I tell them the truth.
Yeah.
Parents are struggling just like you are. Look to your
Uh-huh.
Father in heaven to become like somebody,
Yeah.
and so that gets me in trouble.
Yeah.
But again, when we talk to other people about whether we're Christians or not, let them make the decision if we fit in with them or not, and be joyful that we have a uniqueness to us that separates us from them,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
try to embrace them into our fold. I mean, that's, if you think about, there's this comment that, I don't know if you watched the three kid or the three the Midnight Mormons at all.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
That show's
great, aren't they?
great. Yeah.
Kwaku and Cardin and
And Brad.
Brad.
Yeah.
They are great. But one of the comments that they came up with when they were talking about the ban of the priesthood, that that some of the missionaries went down to the southern Christian people, and they were the ones who exposed them to
The
the
curse of
idea
Cain.
that,
Yeah.
that the black people were cursed, and that
Yeah.
they had no rights to salvation because of that curse. And because they were trying to connect with those people, they started to adopt some of that bad ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't want to connect with bad ideas. We want people to connect to the good ideas. If we can, when we're in our conversations, if we can find greater truth because of somebody else's introduction in our minds about something, especially when it came to works and grace, I think because we were so, I don't know how old you were, but it's a long time ago, we finally, I think it was the prophet Gordon B. Hinckley, got up before the stand and said, we've got to essentially to emphasize the fact that we are saved by grace, not by works, kind of comment.
Yeah.
Without the Christian theology being out there, pressing on our minds and our hearts that we have adopted too much of the works in our attitude,
Approach.
they allowed us to come back to where we are supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a blessing and a curse, right? Every time we co-opt from another group and we interface, because yeah, the whole, the curse of Cain thing, and that could pretty much be traced to these missionaries in the South. And I think a lot of our church's worst ideas are the ideas when we were trying to be like the Protestants, when we were trying to be like the other cool kids. Whereas when we dig into the uniqueness of the gospel and the things that make the restored gospel different, and we can see our shortcomings, like you mentioned with grace. I mean, growing up for me, I heard people use the incorrect analogy of like you want to buy a bicycle and you can only get 30 cents and Jesus gives you 70 cents for the whole dollar, and it's like, that's not how grace works. Jesus already paid off everything. You know, he's given us a chance to participate with through his enabling grace as well. But I mean, that's one topic in particular that I hope 10, 20 years from now, we have a bevy of conference talks and resources to help Latter-day Saints understand how we do believe in grace and how it's different and it's deep and it's multi-layered, and, you know, really parse that out so we understand it so that we can correct that in our own lives more than anything else.
Yeah. So there's opportunity for us to learn from others.
Uh-huh.
But we have, again, we have to embrace the idea that, because names is everything. I tease my son, whose name is Jonah, that you know how God put Jonah in the well and he spit him out on the shores of Nineveh. God is going to come down and with his little spaceship and grab him up and put him in Harlem or something like that. And say, you spent 2 years there and do the work that I asked you to do.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you never know, you know.
Yeah. But
no,
names, but names is everything. And because of the word saint, it means holy. When we try to emphasize that we are Christians, Christian is, and we trying to identify with others that are Christian, guess what you get? You know, because you took on that name, you taken on their ideas on what worthiness is. When we call ourselves saints, it puts us in, it emphasizes that the only way we can become members in good standing, we have to emphasize those things that are godly in our lives. No way are we ever going to be perfect, but that doesn't mean that our hearts and our minds shouldn't be tasked about repentance, continually trying to turn our ways back from the world back to God. And again, when we emphasize that name saint, being holy, then it helps us to say, hey, I'm a saint. I'm going to act like a saint today.
Yeah, that there is definitely something to that, you know. I've been with this most recent talk from President Nelson about, you know, dropping the name Mormon from our vernacular as much as we can. Yeah, that was something that was weird to me because I grew up like not really caring of people calling me Mormon, but since then I've kind of seen the damage. You know, I've seen that when people hear that term, they think of a certain something, and it's not what a member of the church is. But you know, like if you say, if I look at myself as a saint, a Latter-day Saint, really bring that term to its full meaning, that does inspire me to be better and inspires me to be more saintly, more holy. And, you know, there is power to that.
And also the name Mormon was given to us by many and still is to separate us from being, they don't want to say the Church of Jesus Christ. They'd rather say the Mormon Church because they do not want to identify us to have any connection to the name Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
So we have to, if we don't emphasize that we are the members, I love doing it this way. I'm a Latter-day Saint who's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's good.
And Jesus Christ is my master. And so again, we can say that we are members of the Church of Jesus Christ, but we have to, again, also offer them a uniqueness so that people see us as, I mean, you look at there's a talk by Marky Peterson. I know I put it on Facebook a couple of times where he says, we're not Christians. You know what I mean? He's trying to emphasize, and I understand where he's coming from. At the time, there was a battle, a big, huge battle with Tanners and Walter Martin, all these people going around, that there was this real battle between who was right. Was it the Latter-day Saints or was it the Christians? And so because of that, there was a lot of emphasis within those talks back in the 60s and 70s. They emphasized us as in our unique place. And then you can see, it's kind of crazy. You can, if you look at the Book of Mormon, and let's say that that 2030 or somewhere around there is actual return of Jesus Christ. All right. And let's pretend like that's a true statement. All right. And and you look at the Book of Mormon, and you look at the time before Jesus Christ comes to the people of the land of the Americas, you can actually trace out the uptick in membership at that time, about 30 years before, 40 years before. You can see a big uptick in membership at that time in the Book of Mormon and in the modern day. And that happened to be right after we were out there in full-on debates with people, and we were looking very strong at the time during the 60s and 70s. And then what happened, I said this before on another guest, Walter Martin sued the church, actually sued Brother Johnson, who my in-laws know, and sued the church for defamation of character, even though that he's the one who's going around offering to debate anybody anywhere. And so Brother Johnson took him to task, and after that he sued us. And that's where you can even see it in LeGrand Richards' talk, where he says he was talking about his debate when he when he was on a mission with a guy from Amsterdam who was a preacher at his church. They said, well, we don't debate anymore, in his talk, but this is what I did when I was on a mission,
Interesting.
So you can see where we lost our strength of no longer engaging in these conversations that, for one, what those conversations would do, it would allow us to learn some of the history that we were not aware of. And it would also give us a reason to go and study and put up and actually read and get connected to God. And then so you can see how that eventual decline in converts has shown up since then.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be said for when you have to defend something, or when I get hit with a certain claim from someone outside the church, a critical claim, my first inclination is to look into it, see what it is that's actually true, what's not. Otherwise, I mean, it might be that some of what they're saying is true. It might be all of it, might be none of it, And so going through and parsing out those specifics, that's usually where I end up finding even more and more stuff. And oftentimes it's the things that they try to say are wrong that end up proving to be right. But it has to come with some work on your end. It takes it takes a single sentence to say something incorrect about the church, and it takes several paragraphs to go about debunking that one sentence, and it's a lot more work and time. But there's power in that, because it's built my testimony. Every time I get hit with another false thing, it's like, okay, what am I going to learn about this time? And what new grain of faith is going to come from this? But it takes time. It definitely takes some work. Maybe in the church we need to emphasize getting people out there more, doing these discussions, being front facing and defending our beliefs every now and then.
So I just wanted to hear from you. We're going to end this because we did our fast this week, not last week, because we're heathens. But we always have something going on the first Sunday for whatever reason. I try to, but we're going to end our fast here in about 15 minutes.
Oh yeah,
but I
don't want to stop that.
Yeah, but I'll give you the last word if you want to express your testimony. If you've got the last word, I'll give it to you, so we can end this tonight. And anytime you have a subject you want to talk about, feel free to give me a ring, and or anybody else out there that would love to have this have a conversation with me online, and get the message out to as many people as we can, and help people out. Please just contact me however you think you can do it.
Yeah.
So Steve, please end us.
Well, cool. Well, I appreciate the time. This is a cool to get to know you and chat. I'll definitely be contacting you for more information about Walter Martin. I'm actually reading Kingdom of the Cults right now. So I'm reading it and doing like a written response. It's taking forever. I mean, there's just so much in there that there's to respond to. But I'd definitely be interested in learning more about him and about that whole situation, because I don't really know a a whole lot outside of that book. I'd say in terms of the topic of debate, I can't I think you're correct in saying that the only institution and the only members of an institution that has legal proper whatever legal term you use for like official authority.
Authority having jurisdiction.
Yeah, that's the one. And I would say that I would say that ours is the only church that has that. And so in that respect, we are the only, legal ones who can lay the claim to Christ. And I also agree with you in the sense that they've already kind of taken that name. Nothing wrong with letting them have that name, and there's value in us not being associated with the quote unquote Christian title. And so there is that road to walk. But in terms of the claim of who has that institutional authority, I agree that we're the only ones who can lay claim to that, and thus the only ones who have the legal right to make that kind of statement, I would say. Yeah, so an interesting discussion.
Well, thank you so much, sir, Steve, and we'll definitely come back at this again and maybe get some more friends on this discussion, because it helps out with adding variety.
Yeah.
My heroes are the Midnight Mormons. They do such a great job.
Their show is fantastic. It really is.
I actually got a chance to meet Kwaku one time whenever I went to the Three Mormons to do a video. They never put the video out. I probably said something wrong, but but that's all right. Eventually, I'm going to put my whole story out on the YouTube, because I know it's one like wow story. I can't even believe it happened. And it's kind of a side note. Whenever I was representing myself, I beat every lawyer in that room every time
That's
that
awesome.
we had a trial. I just wiped the floor with them. Even
That's
the
great.
judge, when he ruled on a objection for my son's lawyer, who was in foster care at the time, he ruled on approved the fact that I was asking the wrong question. I backed down the judge even. So he had to overrule himself and said, "Yeah, you can go ahead and continue on with the question."
Wow. There you go.
So
when
people
right
try to come in and debate me, you've got your hands full.
Yeah,
that's
there's
why
power there for sure.
And I know for a fact that whenever I was growing up as a child, I had to go to remedial reading and remedial comprehension. Even into the Air Force, I had to go to those classes. And so I definitely don't do this by my own abilities, physical abilities. It is definitely something I truly believe that my Father in heaven has absolutely just guided me through my life to enable me to do what I do today.
Yeah.
And Steve, I just took the last word, so you'll have to
you're good
for that.
No, you're good. I look forward to many more conversations.
Well, thank you so much. And like I said, have a good day, and then enjoy your family for the rest of the Sabbath.
Will do. Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.
There is a green hill far away, without a city wall, where the dear Lord was crucified, who died to save us all. There was no other good enough to pay the price of sin. He